Mercedes picked a really cool path during their car testing in Bahrain. The team showed off a brand new car design called the W15. But here's the thing. Their front wing part is causing a big fuss with other teams, even though the racing officials said it's totally okay to use. Could Mercedes be hiding how fast their car really is by not pushing it to go super fast? After hearing what Russell and Wolff said, it seems like maybe they are. And get this, could Mercedes be tricking everyone by making them focus on just the front wing instead of looking at the rest of the car? The whole car got completely changed over the past few months. The Silver Arrows team brought a car that has one of the biggest changes on the racing track. It already looks really good when it comes to not breaking down and going fast. But this is exactly where things get suspicious. Mercedes didn't run their car at full speed. Russell said the team wasn't trying to go super fast during testing. Instead, they wanted to drive as many miles as possible to learn about the car. This is really interesting because if the team isn't trying to find the perfect setup for their car, then maybe they already know how good it is. The car might give some amazing results on the third day when Mercedes plans to use the soft tires. They'll try to push the car as hard as possible to see if they built an awesome racing machine with the W5. But right now, both Russell and Hamilton weren't the fastest on the track. They weren't even close to being the fastest. This points to Mercedes working on their own secret plan. Many people would call this sandbagging, but really every team has its own separate goal. While it's still possible that Mercedes could be hiding how fast they are and not running the engine at full power, we won't know for sure where the W5 stands until it hits the qualifying session in Bahrain next week. In the first 2 days of practice, Mercedes mainly focused on race pace. This should help them a lot in the upcoming week with all the information they gathered from both Russell and Hamilton's drives with the updated W5. On the other hand, Friday is the day when Mercedes will use a few sets of soft tires for some really fast qualifying laps. The last day of preseason testing is the best time for any team to do this. This is because the track gets better and more rubber gets put down over the past 2 days. So you could kind of say that Mercedes is aiming for what would be like a free practice 3 session on Friday. Russell said the car already feels way better and there's huge improvement compared to the old car, even though the timesheets don't show that yet. This same thing happened on the first day of preseason testing back in 2020. Mercedes was outside of the top 10 drivers, only to completely destroy the rest of the field in the upcoming season. This is basically the original villain story of why the Silver Arrows team is always connected to sandbagging. When they're doing worse than expected in these kinds of events, adding more to this topic, Russell said it was great to drive the W5 for the first time in anger today. From hitting the ground, it felt like we had a good foundation to start from. We completed lots of laps and have plenty of data to go through tonight. We ended the day in a reasonably good spot and we can build from here over the next 2 days. We will be focused on getting the most miles for learning rather than chasing the perfect sweet spot with the car. Overall, the W5 does feel nicer to drive than last year's car. We know that it's not about the feeling but the speed. Nevertheless, today was about learning and not about chasing performance. We're focused on ourselves at this test, and it will only be next week where we see where we stack up against the others. Mercedes has a lot to learn when it comes to how air flows around the car. Wolff talked about the W15 having completely new airflow surfaces compared to the old car. This shows that there will be a lot of interesting developments to look forward to in 2024. On the other hand, the front wing wasn't mentioned in there. Brief things. Once it came out in daylight, it was obvious that this smart way of having 2 main flat pieces attached to the nose and the third, one being connected by carbon fiber, is going to stir up some drama in the upcoming time. Technically, it was said to be legal, and this will cause problems. This is different from every other invention that could have come to the sport in this rule, period, because of how it affects airflow. Inventions like this could definitely add a lot of performance by bringing back the creation of something called the W15 vortex. This was banned in 2022 because of the ground effect. being introduced with the new rules, according to F1's Chief Technical Officer Pat Simmons, just because the wing was said to be legal right now by the FIA doesn't mean it will stay that way. The invention itself does raise some concerns when it comes to whether or not the sport wants these types of things brought to the cars. Adding more to this topic, Simmons said when you start to get things that are perhaps making some airflow outward, and here I think what we're seeing is really trying to bring back quite a strong spinning air current to push that very messy air that's coming from the front wheels to try and push it aside. One question then, is that really within the spirit of the rules? Mercedes' front wing is within the regulations. It's within the letter of the law. There's absolutely no doubt about it. Is it the sort of thing that we want? Well, I don't know. That's perhaps a little bit more debatable, but I think we need to know really how strong the effect is. Simmons believes that the FIA will start to suspect that this invention does have the potential to ruin the competitiveness of the sport. The Airflow Group, which he believes is made up of very experienced and high-level people, could spot the front wing as a potential trend the governing body won't want to see with all of the other teams. But is this something that can be copied by the rest of the teams? And more importantly, does it actually bring as much performance as originally believed? The creation of the W15 vortex is definitely a very important factor, because this is where everything starts when it comes to the airflow of the car. The air hits the front wing and the front tires first. If you make the airflow better from this part of the car, then you've basically done quite a good job of controlling the rest of the airflow surfaces as well. But, according to Wolff, there's nothing to be worried about because Mercedes didn't just show up with the front wing on their own and hope the governing body would call it legal. They had constant conversations with the responsible people in the FIA about this matter. This is why it was called legal in the first place, according to this matter. Wolff said, it's not such a thing where you have a clever idea and then you bolt it on to test and you think that could be or couldn't be challenged. That's a long process of talking that happens over the winter. I feel we're in an okay place. Apart from that, Mercedes has also done some of Hamilton's wishes. They moved the seat 100 millimeters back and let him have a better feel with the rear end of the car. This is unlike what he had to deal with now, where he's explained that driving the W13 and the W14 are sitting on their front wheels, obviously, with the current airflow rules saying that most of the downforce would be created from the floor. It's really important to have a very strong rear end. This is something that Hamilton likes a lot, but not to the point where you cannot control it. This was the case back in 2022. This was pointed out by the leaving 7-time world champion, who went on to say that even though he shared his fears about the previous design of the car, he wasn't listened to and was told that he was wrong when talking about this matter in more detail. Hamilton explained, I remember complaining to the team and being like, look, we have to make these changes, otherwise this is the path we're going to go on and this is where we're going to end up. Please, do something about it. I remember they said, like, we know what we're doing, you're wrong. And that was definitely an interesting moment. I was like, okay, I'll step back, I don't want to step on anyone's toes. Then we got into the season, then we spoke again, and the engineer said, oh, maybe you were right. Looking at this perspective, it's kind of easier to see why Hamilton chose to make the move he made regarding using his exit clause. But nonetheless, he still has one full season with Mercedes. Right now, the W5 does look decent enough to compete for wins and podium finishes much more often than the previous 2 years, if you add the fact that the RB20's first issue happened, which is the failure of the brakes on Perez's car, combined with Marco's fears that there might not be that much of a performance gain with the new design of the car, considering that Mercedes failed for 2 seasons in a row with it. A small bit of hope can rise for the Silver Arrows in 2024, but according to Perez, the brake issues as well as the potential for a small fire that happened are not something that should worry the Red Bull fans, because they got a bit too hot and the team made some fixes before he headed back into the track by replacing the brake material. Red Bull would make sure that this won't be a problem in the first couple of races, where hot temperatures would definitely be a challenge. Even though the first 2 races will be driven at night. With this in mind, What do you think about Mercedes' theory of hiding performance? Let us know in the comments below, and once you do that, make sure to click on the video that's appearing on your screen right now.